Hi, you're going to have to forgive me for having the fan blowing at us. It's just that it's 90 plus in my apartment today, and I'm trying not to boil and become dehydrated and end up with heat stroke while I talk to you. For many years of my life, I have heard people say, vote for the lesser of two evils. Don't like Trump? Vote for Harris. Don't like Harris? Vote for Trump. Forget all those other parties. They're never going to win anyways. Well, that's true, because you guys keep on telling everybody that. Now, the truth is that there is a comparatively small number of peoples who have spread that myth. Well, it's a two-part myth, really, if you count both things that I mentioned. And they have an ulterior motive, because it keeps you within the bipartisan options, or rather, I should say, the two parties that are dominant in our country. I mean, let's face it, the last time we had a different party in was the Tea Party. Oh, wait, the Tea Party was just more Republicans. That's silly me. What was I thinking? So we haven't had a presidential candidate from a different party. I don't even remember when that would have been, but it was well before I was ever alive. And part of that is because the Democrats and Republicans have worked very hard to marginalize any other party. So, if you look at it on the face of things, there are numerous parties in this country, including socialists and communists and libertarian and green and so on and so forth. But the laws are made in such a way that it is very hard to get other candidates on the ballot in a state. You have to collect hundreds of thousands of votes, or on a petition, I guess it would be more correct. Petition signatures. In order for the state to acknowledge your candidate and put your candidate on the ballot. Now, yes, you could write in your ballot choice, but only the people who know about that person and are interested in that person and know they can write it in, if there is even a ballot write-in option available, will do so. Everybody else will be like, oh, Daisy Duck, I don't. She's not on the list. I guess I can't vote for her. Oh, well. Not that I'm saying Daisy Duck would be the best choice. Ducks from Disney having a bad problem with tempers. Probably we need somebody who's calm. So I have to segue for a minute here to talk about the problem with voting. And in some respects, it's specific to our country. In other respects, it is a general problem with democracy. Now, I'm going to set aside the Electoral College. That's a whole ball of wax by itself. That is part of the problem. And it makes it easier to corrupt the election results. But let's just put that to the side. You can go to CGP Gray's channel to learn about that, as well as gerrymandering, which is another corruption of the voting system that has been done many, many times and should never be allowed. Voting areas should be clearly made and not based on demographics, not based on political parties, not based on anything other than, let's make this an area as simple as possible. When it goes like this, that is gerrymandering almost every time. So I'm not going to talk about those. CGP Gray also talks about those. He also talks about better ways to handle voting. I'm not going to talk about those. Go see CGP Gray's old videos about that. They still stand. They're great. And they will help you to understand some of the things that are wrong with our voting system. So in a democracy, it isn't the best candidates who win. It is the candidates who collect the most money from either a lot of people or more likely the deepest pockets, which means the elites and the other rich, and who are the best able to persuade people to vote through them, either through hope and or fear. In other words, emotional manipulation. And so that means you have to have a populace that understands politics, which Americans do not in general, understands how to ignore emotional manipulation, psychological manipulation, in a more general way of speaking, so that they can see past the tricks that are being played on their emotional mind and use their logic to understand who is genuinely in our best interests as a country for both the individuals and the corporations and everything in between. We also currently have the problem of the false claims of Citizens United that were upheld by the rigged Supreme Court that gave corporations the status of individuals, at least for the purpose at this time of voting, and which introduces a lot of dark money, or dark being unknown sources, into the equation, which allows the elites and big corporations to further corrupt at least the executive branch, since we're not talking about the Senate and the Congress and so on. So that is a significant problem. And don't worry, I'm going to come back to the whole thing about the lesser of two evils. Another problem is, and this is both a small problem and a large problem, depending on which way you look at it. There's something called the 7 mountains or areas of influence. And they are business, arts and entertainment, media, government, family, education, and religion. There is something called the 7 Mountain Mandate, which is a mandate for some religious people to work to become employed in those 7 areas of influence in order to manipulate results, in order to redirect the direction of the country to match what they want to have happen, which is another way of saying that through gaining control of power systems, of key positions, they can usurp control of the narrative, of elections, and ultimately of what kind of country we have. And so for some people, they believe we need a dictatorship that is religious. And they have already got in mind who they want. Now, I'm not pointing any fingers, okay? I'm not going to say which religions or sects are doing this, which politicians have been tapped for that. But if you get key people into every state, even if it's just for the purpose of altering elections or refusing to verify the results of elections, you can effectively change who is elected to the position of the president. And this is a subversion of the Constitution. It is a subversion of democracy. Democracy is not perfect. Capitalism is not perfect. Our representative democracy is fraught with peril. We don't even have mandatory voting. So a large number of people don't vote, which brings me to the next problem. And that is that a large number of people don't vote. A lot of young people tend not to vote because they don't think they have the power to make change. The truth is, however, that young people have a huge amount of influence over the direction of an election, as do old people. So, what about minorities? I'm a minority. You wouldn't know it by looking at me, but I'm a minority in multiple ways. A lot of minorities feel, and a lot of young people feel, and a lot of other people feel disenfranchised. They feel like it doesn't matter what I do with my votes. It isn't going to change anything. And if you listen to the lie of the lesser of two evils, you're right. Nothing will ever change. Both parties are corrupted. We have admissions from multiple people in the elite, such as the Koch brothers, one of which is who is now dead, that and Donald Trump also has admitted it, they will give money to both Democrats and Republicans because it's not important to them which party wins so much as it's important that they have the power to influence those politicians because of the money they gave them, which should not be allowed, by the way. Have you ever wondered why it is that somebody with extreme wealth has a direct line to the president's office, whereas you and I would never be able to get through? Yeah. So, every person who decides not to vote because of the lesser of two evils myth, because of the belief that they can't make a difference, I mean, that's also a myth. Because of certain other reasons, is somebody who has been tricked, who has come to believe something that is not true. And the worst part of it is that is what the elites want. That is what the people who want to turn this country into a dictatorship or a fascist state want, or a theocracy that only recognizes their form of their religion. That's what they want you to do. They want you to either buy the myth of the lesser of two evils, or they want you to give up in despair. But let me tell you, if you are a minority, it is super important that you vote. Because the truth of the matter is the number of people who have habitually voted in these elections is a smaller number than the rest of us. And if we were all to vote, the outcome would be much different. In fact, one could theorize that if everybody was required to vote, that there would be less election interference, less buying of politicians, and so on. It's a theory. So, if you are any kind of a minority, I don't care if it's a religious minority or an ethnic minority or a superficially visible minority, whether that be because of skin color or type of eyes or disability that is visible, or even invisible disabilities like I have, which is sometimes called mental illness, you should be voting. And do not let politicians emotionally trigger you and manipulate you, because once they do that, they have control of you. They wrap you around their little finger and get you to do their bidding. get you to believe their lies. And again, I'm not saying who. I'm not saying, because a lot of politicians do that. It is the, I guess you could say, the currency of politics when it comes to getting votes, to manipulate people into siding with you. So, now that I've explained that, and there are other things that I could go into, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to make this video too long. It's already 15 minutes. The last thing I want to point out to you is this. So many people say, you have to vote for the lesser of two evils. And I say two things. The first thing I say is, if you have two evils, is one of them really lesser than the other? If Mephistopheles and Baphomet are the two evils, or Lucifer and Baal are the two evils, or something else, does that make either of them a good choice? And I emphatically say no. The second truth is that you should be voting for the opposite of an evil. Not a lesser evil, but the people who potentially would be good for this nation and good for the people as well as good for the businesses. Because honestly, many very famous and wise people have said moderation is the key to success. And the people who try to drive you to the left or to the right, my left and right, not yours, don't want that. They want something else. Maybe it's power and wealth. Maybe it's an ideology. Who knows? Everybody's different. So don't vote for the lesser of two evils. Don't vote for the greater of two evils. Vote for somebody good. Vote for somebody who represents your true beliefs, who doesn't fearmonger, who doesn't pump you up on false promises. Because remember, when a president makes claims about what he or she is going to do, those are claims that they can't necessarily fulfill because they're only one part of the entire government of America. There are three branches. Yes, a president can do an executive order, but an executive order can be canceled by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can make a common law decision, but that can be overturned by Congress. Congress can make a bill, and the president can veto it. So each branch of the government is supposed to be able to balance out the other two. So be wise, be calm, vote for the best person. I'm not going to tell you who I think that is, because you may not believe me, and I could be wrong. I just want you to start looking at voting in a different way. Be educated. Be careful. Guard this. Thanks for watching. I hope that this election will bring a good future for America and for the world. Have a great day.